Hey, welcome back, viewers, and having a great evening, I guess. Lovely weekend it's been. Well, thank you so much for joining us back on the Renewalism Show. We have been really happy to receive your chat box comments. You know where it is now. For those of you who are joining in for the first time today, well, it's on the right. You just scroll down a little below and feed us with questions, comments, and whatever. Today is a very, very interesting episode because we are talking about regeneration, regrowth, and everything that it takes to renew for us while we live our lives. And for those of you who are wondering what the whole deal is about, well, Renewal is a book which you see by my side, written about the fact that it takes only 30 habits to renew our world at large. Now, the world has, because of our earlier habits and conditioning, uh, sort of gone into a state of decay, rising personal illness, and social disintegration, environmental degradation. And in the last 3 months, we've seen a lot of that change because some of our habits, our ways of working, our ways of thinking, and our ways of being changed. And that sort of crisis, the COVID crisis, has taught us a lesson which coincidentally was captured in this book in December last year. This book was, in fact, channeled to me by an energy form that I call Guru Pranachandra, because that's the name he took, and he's the writer of the book. It's a discourse by Guru Pranachandra, woven through a very interesting fictional track because he's part of a family and the discourse is happening there. So people, as you read the book, you will see you're able to relate with it. But at the end of the day, we're looking at renewalism standing for a movement much like veganism, which is a modern movement and has to do with a change of lifestyle, change of habit patterns. And so the world is just 30 habits away from renewal. If you want to be part of the movement, it all starts with renewalism.com. Head over to the site, grab a copy of the book if you like, or just be in touch. And today we get on with the show. So, who do we have? We have a person, a very eminent gentleman by name Ravi Bhandari, who's working for the last many, many years in the corporate sector across countries and suddenly got this urge to renew, regrow, regenerate internally. And today he is helping a lot of seekers with soul healing, a very, very spiritual activity. And a lot of NGOs find their purpose. A lot of women get empowered, and it's awesome the kind of turnaround of thinking within and outside that Ravi brings to himself, to us, and now on the show to you. So that said, I'd like to bring Ravi Bhandari onto the show. And the first question I'll ask him with you. But Ravi, can you join us? Yeah, there you are.
Sure.
Hi. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Thanks for
Thank you for
coming
having
on.
me. Thank you for having me.
Well, I've been waiting 29 days for this one. So, Ravi, I like viewers to actually hear your story because I think it's absolutely remarkable and inspiring. And then we'll get on to what renewal is about and how that ties in with what anybody can implement at a practical level. So, just a few minutes, if you could share what went through your mind and spirit.
Sure. So I'm actually a accountant. I did my training and qualification in the UK. I came back to India and I joined a multinational company. And I was things were going well in terms of work and all of that. But somewhere deep in my heart, I was feeling a little dissatisfied. And if anybody asked me, I didn't have the language to articulate that properly. I would just probably give a reason that the other guy would buy. But that was not the whole truth, right? And I was doing my own soul searching to figure out what is the truth. And at some level, I was in an inquiry that am I kind of an escapist who's not doing what I'm trained to do. I do believe I have one of the finest trainings that in the world of finance that the planet has to offer, but it doesn't call me at all. I would hate to spend my time ticking and bashing and giving a list of problems that the client has and then asking him to pay for it. So, somehow I couldn't do it. It didn't work for me. So that's where I was. And in my heart, there was this constant search that am I an escapist? Am I running away from something that I ought to be taking responsibility for? That's when I came in touch with this organization that does soul healing. And in a conversation, there was somebody said that you have many journeys that happen at the same time. You have a physical journey
Mm.
and you have a spiritual journey, and the soul is the boss. So when I looked at my life, I said I can completely relate with that. That I would work in a corporate, earn some money, then go to an NGO, work over there for a while. When the money started running out, I would go back again and take up a corporate job, earn some money again. And so I asked Mo, I said, what exactly is the soul journey? How does it work?
Mm.
So what I got was, in a nutshell, that soul is the boss. And if you're doing something that doesn't agree with the soul, it's like the soul will just take the plugs out of the mains. And you can keep on snapping the remote control all you wish. Nothing will come on the screen. So in a strange way, I could relate with that. I could say that, okay, fine, I know the feeling. I know that, I can go through the motions of working at a corporate. I can go and fight all the corporate battles and try and get a little place in the sunshine and all of that. But that's not what I really want,
Mm.
right? So then the inquiry came, what do I want? And what do I do about it? So I went through a series of practices with soul healing. And at some point, I started getting in touch with a very deep part of me. And that
Mm.
had to do with sharing and contributing to people's lives. So
Awesome.
between spending 10 hours a day at work and picking up 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, and spending 3 hours in the day uh, counseling and sharing with somebody and listening to his word and trying to say and suggest things that will make a difference to the quality of his life, not to his money making capabilities.
Mm.
That, there was no comparison. I would just get drawn to that completely. So when I started discovering that, and I started discovering that there is truth in what is being said, and that truth is worth thinking about. So then I started getting deeper into the practices, and then we did something called a forgiveness practice.
Okay.
In soul healing, they have a practice called a forgiveness practice, and
Mm.
basically that's a small practice in where you say sorry for everything that you've done wrong, right? So
Right.
I was having financial issues. So I was looking at, okay, what is it that I've done? What do I need to do forgiveness for to correct that issue that I'm having? And as
Mm.
I did the practices and as I went deeper, I started getting wisdom, and I started getting that you're like I was arguing. I was saying I'm a hard worker. I'm not incompetent. I do things well for the organization. My heart is in the right place. Then why? What is wrong with what I'm doing? And
Yeah.
as I did the practices, I suddenly got one day that hard worker, yes, honest, yes, result producer, yes, but you fight for credit, no. So I stopped and thought, I come from a family of professionals. And in the way that I was raised, there's nothing wrong with claiming your rightful share of the sunshine when you do something for an organization,
True.
right? So there was nothing wrong according to the way I saw it.
Mm.
But so I stayed there. I said, I don't understand what is wrong with what I'm doing.
Mm.
And I started getting answers that what you get is a function of your karma, not a
Right.
function of what you're doing right now. Right? And heavens is very fair. Heaven doesn't make mistakes in calculation and allocating credit and
Yes, yes. The
guilt.
karmic balance sheets are perfect. Totally
Perfect.
agree.
And when I started getting this wisdom, I started thinking again, and I said, my friend Ravi, you need to recreate yourself, because whatever yardsticks you've grown up with, whatever values you've held dear, which means to be successful in the corporate world, to be thought of well, to make money, etc., all those yardsticks are perhaps not as reliable and not as fulfilling as other yardsticks that could possibly exist.
Correct. And then
So it
that
was,
opened you out to look at the contribution space. I love the use of that word because the moment you got into that space of making contribution, the 10,000 per day didn't matter at all.
it doesn't matter.
I,
It
I
doesn't
love that.
matter.
I want to hold you on that one because you know what you said. I'm sure a lot of our viewers at a personal level would relate because those are the kind of conundrums that come across. I think every corporate executive at some point or the other, and finding your purpose, something that Guru Pranab Chandra talks about in detail here, is one thing. But practically, how did you move into this purpose-driven life while you were still, as you mentioned, there was a financial issue. So bread and butter was important, you know. So how
Yes,
do you ride those two boats practically? Because that's where you're really regrowing from within.
you couldn't be more accurate. So for me, I looked at my relationship with money, and what I realized was that it wasn't about bread and butter. It was about being thought of well in my community.
Uh,
Okay. And when I
right.
asked myself that if this is what you want to make your bread and butter for, then I don't know whether that's good enough reason for it. That's why you're not making it. Because somewhere deep
Mm,
inside, I knew that, okay, I need to make money, but am I willing to give up what I value for that money?
correct.
Right? And that was a
Correct.
conflict I experienced. But I didn't have an
I,
answer.
I'm going to use that to springboard to a line we've got here in one
Okay.
of the insets. He says that when you live simply, you always have it all. I think you epitomize that.
Well, let me tell you, when I started looking, I asked myself then, okay, what is actually somebody came and this person was a healer and he said, I'm struggling with money. So I sort of laughed at myself and I said, you've come to the wrong person. I'm also struggling with money. But then I got real and I said, let me address that as best as I'm capable of. So I asked him, how much money do you need in the month? So he said about 1 lakh. I have family, I have to support them and so on. I said, okay. And how many people would you like to serve every day doing the healing that you do? So he said between 25 and 50.
Oh,
So I said, very good. So how many are you serving right now? So he said, maybe two. So,
okay.
so I said, okay. And what percentage is two of 25? And he worked out a percentage and he gave it to me. And I said, how much money are you earning? And when he gave me the figure, it was exactly the same percentage
Of
as the
1
number
lakh.
of people he was serving. So I said, see, it's not me talking and imposing a value system on you. If you go out and do what you're meant to do on the planet, and you do it with your heart and soul, the person sitting up there will take care of your needs.
Wonderful.
So,
On
so I started with that, and as I spoke to him, I was like speaking to myself too. And then I started going all out and making a contribution, sharing and doing whatever I was able to do for the people who came in front of me.
right.
Then suddenly he came home and said, I have this problem. Can you help me? And I said, yes. He said, it'll take 2, 3 hours of chanting every day. I said, if you can't do it, I'll do it for you. And he started sending me a check every month. In fact, he asked me, how much money do you need? I had no answer for him. I said, I have financial karma. And I don't want
Mhm.
to overstate my rightful due because I don't want to perpetuate it. I know how much it hurts. So let me find out what the fair price is and then I'll do it. So that's how it started and that's how it's going on.
I have a observation from one of our viewers about gratitude. How important is that in this shifting and process of regrowth?
Very important. Because if you're coming from a space that I'm scarce and like I should have more or I should have less or I should have something different, if you are in that space, there'll be no gratitude. And if you are in that space, you won't even get there's lack over there in that conversation.
True, true, true. So, Raviji, there is a very direct and practical habit that Guru Prachandra talks of. In this context, of course, the whole book is about renewing, but he says for the way we are living our lives and what we can do is recycle, reuse, refurbish, regenerate, regrow. Talking of recycling everything from paperweights to solar panels, and is looking at what you could refurbish to as
That's
ideas
right.
come on, you could actually form renewal clubs and things like that, so that ideas can be shared. Now, I know that you're living in one of the um, closely knit colonies of and old colonies of Delhi, the Friends Colony, and I'm sure that a lot of people have started adopting and regrow, for example, adopting practices of growing in their balconies or in their kitchen gardens and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So
How do
I'll
you?
share I'll
Yeah,
share with you.
yeah.
See, as I started doing the practices that had come my way, some changes started happening. One was that I started having a lot of respect for all of humanity,
Okay.
no matter
Which is
what.
through the soul healing practices.
Yeah.
Right.
So the soul healing practices only connect me to my soul,
Hmm.
right? And as I connect with my soul, I get the experience of what is important to me and what is not.
Right.
So maybe wearing a fancy shirt is not as important to me as talking to somebody about recycling something.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So my
So
question was, how do you see that coming into a Friends colony, for example? How do you
so
see that?
what I was going to say was one of the things that happens that you start having a lot of respect. And one of the masters that 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 are very big in soul healing, he or the master who started soul healing, he said that the purpose of life is to serve.
Wonderful.
So everybody and everything is out there to serve you, and your purpose is to serve everybody and everything. So if there is a plant that's dying and you cannot revive it, you can use it as khad. That plant will be happy. If
And
you,
it ties in with your purpose.
yeah,
Awesome.
if you're eating something and you choose not to finish what's on your plate and you throw away the rest, that the soul of that food is going to feel very rejected. It gave its life for you, and you've not even had the decency of finishing the food.
Wow.
So the masters say that everything has a soul. Every organ, every system. The chair I sit on has a soul. There is a soul of this conversation that you and I are having. If I disrespect that soul, somewhere I create bad karma.
Perfect. How do you take
So,
that into consciousness of other people?
one of the things I've started noticing is that sometimes a lot of us get together and chant.
Hmm.
So there is a neighbor living in Kalkaji, Govindpuri, and she came and she used to come for chanting here. And she said, Ravi, you don't have time to look after your garden. I said, correct. She says, do you mind if I do some work with your garden? I said, not at all. My servant is there to support you. I shouldn't call him servant. The person, my helper, is there to support you. And please, if you can, whatever you think is right, please go ahead and do it. So she came up with an enzyme. And she said, from now on, don't throw any kitchen waste. Put it in these carries, and this enzyme will convert that into compost.
Good.
Okay. So she called me to her house and said, you don't understand what I'm saying. Come home. I went to her house, and she lives on the third floor of a DDA flat in Govindpuri. And she showed me, she said, I have all my old kitchen utensils here, and I keep on putting the waste in there, and the enzyme is already there. It keeps converting all of this into compost, and I have a kitchen garden in my balcony.
Wow. Wow.
I haven't thrown a thing from my kitchen for the last maybe 10 years.
Wow.
So I don't know whether the egg comes first or the chicken comes first, whether the chanting elevated her soul and she then chose to do this, or she got this inspiration first and then she went into chanting. I don't know. But somewhere there's a link, because when I talk with my friends in the chanting community, they all say, let's support it. Let's make it happen.
Awesome. In
So,
fact,
you know,
that is the kind of direction in which peer pressure would start moving. Even without the chanting, the consciousness would rise, because you just see the sense of it. And COVID has made us realize more and more sense of a lot of
yeah.
ancient wisdom, which we had sort of
In
waylaid
fact, in
beside.
fact, there was a conversation. I don't know if we have time for it, but there was a conversation where somebody asked Master Shah, that why are you doing these practices? Why are you giving these tawans to people, right? And he said that in the days to come, people are going to require this because life is going to change. It's not going to be the way it is. Time will reinvent itself. And people will then work from homes. There'll be a balancing of, there'll be new diseases doctors haven't heard of. And that's the time when your divine healing hands and your Tao hands will come handy. So not only he, other saints from other places. On the 22nd of March, I got about 6 calls from different religious groups, spiritual groups, that called me and said, would you like to join us for chanting for this, for chanting for that?
Mhm.
And I realized that there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual. And I realized that people from the spiritual community were drawn into these practices. And the constraints of religious divide fizzled away with time.
Right. Now that's a deep subject that you are entering into, so I'm not going to venture down that lane. We are on the
Okay.
top of 20 minutes, and viewers, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to this channel so that you keep getting notifications about the episodes that are happening on a daily basis. There's a playlist in case you haven't caught up with some of the past episodes. Do that, because we've been having guests from various fields, and it's so awesome that Raviji has touched upon integrally important aspects like purpose, on which we've had Sunil Robert do a complete half an hour session, and so much more. I mean, you could go through that, but importantly, keep coming back. Tomorrow 9 p.m. same page, bookmark it. We've got a scientific analysis of consciousness, and that's a great way to sort of uh, get our minds to understand, our scientific minds to understand stuff that Raviji's put through experientially. But if you don't have the experience yet and you still would like to get into that consciousness, well, the answer lies tomorrow. So join us tomorrow. But before I let you go, I'd like to hand over back to Mr. Ravi Bhandari for any final words of wisdom, sir.
I don't know about final words of wisdom, but as you
Sure.
spoke of science, within the work organization that I'm working in and learning from, There are doctors and scientists who are trying to give a scientific explanation to spiritual existence and spiritual truths.
Yeah,
And
they haven't caught up yet.
well, it's there in the pipeline. And if you wish, sometime I could show it to you. I could share some of that with you. It is there. And this is happening because they are one. Spirituality and science are one. It's just that science has not appreciated the logic that spiritual seekers follow,
Yep.
and vice versa. But it is there and it's round the corner.
Great. Glad about that. So thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you, viewers. Have a good night, and we are gonna see you tomorrow. So take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you for having me on the show.
Good day. Bye.